Airman. I am a warrior. I have answered my nation's call. I am an American Airman. My mission is to fly, fight, and win. I am an American Airman, wingman, leader, warrior. I will never leave an airman behind. I will never falter, and I will not fail.
There it is again. We're back. Air Force Recruiting Services only live stream, the back and forth. And today we are covering all things Chaplain Corps. One of the coolest parts about chaplains is the fact that in the Air Force, they don't necessarily only deal with spiritual issues or religious issues. They can deal with all kinds of different things: life guidance, counseling, a shoulder to cry on, an ear to listen to, through good times, bad times, and everything in between. So honestly, kind of one of the most slept on resources that the Air Force has for its members and also families and stuff around. Some of the other cool things that they get to do is they provide a sense of community for Air Force members and military members all over the world, no matter where you're at, whatever those actual religious needs are. So to make sure that you can get to preference of service and stuff like that, even when you're downrange or stationed overseas, they're the ones responsible for making sure that you still are covered in that area. Another cool thing that I actually found out prior to the show, chatting with some of our guests, is leadership advice, right? So if you're ever in a situation where you're not really sure what to do or how to process a situation, you can go to the chaplains and kind of seek overall military guidance, about how to move through a tricky situation. So we have actually got a couple of guests, and one of our first guests we will get to after a real quick video that's going to show us a little bit about what it's like to be a chaplain or in chaplain services in the Air Force. Let's hit it.
The way that a chaplain can support the overall Air Force mission is by helping airmen to be their whole best selves.
Chaplains are the integral part of helping our Airmen and Guardians maintain balance in their life with the focus on the spiritual. Only when a person is properly grounded are they prepared to engage the challenges to fly, fight, and win. So chaplains help to maintain that readiness. By defending the First Amendment rights of our Airmen and Guardians and advising leadership in spiritual matters, chaplains ensure that our troops can maintain their beliefs and exercise their faith.
I'm there to talk with airmen, do unit engagement, or be that calm presence in individuals' lives when they need it the most.
As a priest, I'm a spiritual leader, but most of the time, we just have to sit down and listen. It doesn't have to do necessarily with his faith denomination, just being human next to another fellow human.
As a chaplain, I've never found that I have to compromise my faith in any way. I think the different faiths make me stronger in my own faith, and I hope it makes others stronger in theirs. I think that it's a neat way to be able to serve, because oftentimes representation is what people need to see to feel seen. To be part of that in the Chaplain Corps is a gift.
When you join as a chaplain in the U.S. Air Force, you're not just a minister, you're also an officer. You're called to lead people and do it well, do it wisely, with the mission in mind. You get to wear a lot of different hats. But at the end, it all ties down to being there for people, helping them with their spiritual resiliency.
For me, the best part of being a chaplain in the United States Air Force is the way that people trust you. Sometimes you hear the hardest pieces of their life, and then other times you get to share in their immense joys. So I think it's being asked to be part of those really special and sacred moments is the best part of it.
My average day involves going to a squadron in the morning time, talk with airmen, do unit engagement, or engage with the military training instructors. If I'm preaching that Sunday, find some time in the day to get a sermon prepped and be ready for Sunday. That's my typical day.
Work-life balance. With the Air Force, you get that. When you're off the clock and you have a team that can take care of problems, you have that time to relax and to recuperate and be rejuvenated.
My kids love it. They love the adventure. They love the support that they've had, and they're proud of their dad.
As a chaplain, the spiritual growth, the professional growth is just amazing. This is the place that you will find the necessary steps, the challenges that will transform your life.
When someone can see themselves in you, they are more open to the care that you have to give them, and that helps them to be the best airman that they can be.
In the Air Force, I've been given so many opportunities to speak love and truth into the lives of people.
It's an incredible experience being that individual that people just feel that they can trust. It is both an honor and a privilege.
Wow, that's really good. So one of the cool things about us being able to show videos prior to meeting our guests is the fact that we get a cool glimpse into what it's like to be part of that career field or that topic that we're about to kind of embark on an hour-long journey of. And most of the time coming out the other side, I get like goosebumps and I'm all fired up and I'm ready to like rejoin even though I'm already in, and I'm just like really excited. This one kind of had a very positive but also opposite effect, very calming. You know, there's always pre-show jitters and stuff, but like coming into that, it's like just super calm. So I think a couple of things that I really loved about that was really keying in on like First Amendment rights and protecting those and how these guys protect those First Amendment rights, making sure that people have the freedom to practice religion. Also a lot of listening. They spend a lot of time listening to people. And then I really like the bit about speaking love and truth into people's lives. That's just really powerful for me. So to help us kind of dive deeper into all things chaplain services, we have joining us Chaplain Harris. He is a unit chaplain. Welcome to the show, sir. Why don't you introduce yourself for us?
Hey, yeah, thanks for starting. Chaplain Harris here at Pope Army Airfield. Super excited to get to talk about the Chaplain Corps today. I love it, love my job. So hopefully it'll be helpful.
Awesome. Okay, so tell me, what led you prior to military service to look to the Air Force to be somewhere that you can practice this particular skill set and you can actually do something like be a chaplain in the military? Like, what's that like from a civilian perspective in that transition?
Yeah, it's a good question. So maybe a bit of a longer answer
Sure.
than we prepared for, but so I was in undergrad in college and didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I had looked at some different career paths and felt a calling towards the ministry, but again, didn't know what that would look like. So went to seminary. And when I was in divinity school there for 3 years, they would bring in different speakers once a month to talk about, hey, what do you do with this degree once you graduate? And one of them who came in was an Army National Guard chaplain. And as she was speaking about it, it was like, that is what I'm supposed to do. Because my background was somewhat church. I was working for a church post and during seminary in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Sure.
But the other side of that was I was working for a parachurch ministry called Young Life, where for adolescents engaging with high school students. And this was kind of the perfect mix when that chaplain was talking about it, of like, oh, this takes the skill sets from both realms and really a place where kind of passion and purpose come together in a beautiful way.
Sure. Very cool. So was it anything particular about the Air Force that gave you like, that's the direction I want to go, as opposed to civilian service in the same way?
Yeah, I think the ability to talk to people no matter what their background is in the Air Force, because the Air Force is a reflection of the US, right? So you've got people from all walks of life, and being able to interact with people that don't look like me or grew up like me, and still help them on the darkest days of their life and walk alongside them in their careers and in like their marriages and parenting, and being able to speak truth and love into that, like the video was saying. It's just a really unique opportunity.
Right.
And then the other side is my grandpa was in the Air Force and always maybe thought a little bit about serving, but wasn't sure if it was right for me, and then decided to take a swing at it.
Sure. No, absolutely. A little bit of family legacy goes a long ways. Everybody out there joining us on the internet, remember the question and answer section of the show is coming. We see already all the love in the comments. Go ahead and put a Q in front of your question if it is indeed a question, and we will make sure to rack and stack those, and we will put them on the show later once we get into that portion of it. And we'll have the chaplain as well as our next guest also helping us answer some of those questions in the back half of the show. So keep those coming through. We are tracking them, and we are already putting them into the questions bucket. So keep that in mind, put a Q in front of it, and then we'll roll forward from there. So, all right, back to Chaplain Harris. What is probably one of the coolest things that you have been able to say kind of made a difference between the experiences you've had so far with, the military specifically versus civilian service of the same thing? Because it comes with very unique challenges as opposed to civilian side.
Yeah. So there's going to be a dual pronged answer here.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, I think the first part is I never know what a day is going to look like in my job right now.
Okay.
Because you're responding to stuff, you're meeting with people, you're available for kind of the emergency situations that come up in life. So a random Tuesday can look like doing a visitation at a hospital, meeting with an airman, praying before a ceremony, and then meeting with the group commander to talk through some ethical issues or moral issues that he's considering or she's considering.
Sure.
So really very dynamic environment. Like you just don't know what you're going to get any given day.
Okay.
And then I think the other side of it, a different experience is, you're still an officer in the military. So,
Right.
And everything that comes with that. So trainings away from home and also deployments away from home. So I was deployed to the Middle East a couple of years ago, and it was while the Houthis were kind of launching some stuff, and it was waking up in the middle of the night and hearing the air raid sirens and running to a
Sure.
bunker and being like, oh yeah, this is the other part of the job, is that, it's a unique
Sure.
environment. But then that led into, oh, I get to talk to airmen about that experience and what it made them think
Right.
of and how they felt during that,
Right.
and be a resource
sure.
for them, because you're right there with them. It's not like they're calling somebody 1,000 miles away.
Mhm.
You're with the team.
I love it. So you mentioned kind of having to deal with some of those pretty high tense situations and also having to be ready for them because there's not a whole lot of way to prepare for something that's coming through your door. You may only have seconds to react, right? So what kind of training do you get to prepare you for that? Like, how do you prepare for the unknown when it comes to being able to provide guidance like that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So part of it is what you bring with you coming into the Air Force.
Sure.
Because the Air Force is looking to bring in people with a little bit of experience already, or at least the master's degree in divinity, or hopefully you've taken some courses that are going to prepare you for those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
But the other side of it is the Air Force is interested in developing you professionally. So there's tons of opportunities to go out and take courses in, everything, crucial conversations or traumatic stress response. There's just this plethora of experiences that you can find and reach out to, and the Air Force is willing to invest in you to get that training so you can respond better, because there's always places to grow, right?
So you feel that you've kind of been well prepared for it. You get a whole bunch of tools to be able to utilize in all the situations.
Yeah. One of my mentors used to say, you just pray and show up, and that's probably what I'm like for the first part. Just pray and show up, and it's like, oh my gosh, like, because someone comes to your office, and we have 100% confidentiality in the Chaplain Corps,
Right.
so the conversation can go anywhere,
Sure.
whatever's kind of weighing on the person, and it's like, all right, strap in. Like, I don't know what's going to come out of their mouth, but I know my role in that is to be there as a passionate listening presence who can hopefully give them some comfort, or at least steer them to a place of better health spiritually.
Right.
So yeah, whenever I think I'm prepared is probably when I get hit with something. I'm like, oh no, not prepared. I need to lean into this a little bit more.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it sounds like the challenges are pretty diverse, and some of the opportunities to help people and be a really powerful resource for them. It sounds like they're pretty much endless. You go to work and you get another opportunity for it. Next question I've got for you is, talk to me a little bit about the enlisted versus the officer side in chaplain services, right? So obviously chaplains are officers, and then on the other side we have the religious affairs airmen. But from an officer's perspective, or someone who's potentially looking to do chaplain services in the Air Force, what are considerations for kind of what their motive is and what their background is for whether they should go O or E?
Yeah. So for the Chaplain Corps specifically, it's going to be, you're going to need that. You're going to need to be a religious professional. So I'm ordained in the Evangelical Presbyterian Church, and I worked in the church. And that is what the Air Force is looking for, right? To bring in ordained individuals who are endorsed to fulfill that role in uniform. And the East Side and Sergeant Graydon, when he comes on, can probably speak to this a little bit more. It's really a team, right? So they call us religious support teams, because there's going to be airmen who maybe don't feel comfortable talking to a captain in the Air Force if they're new.
Yeah.
Or they might be able to speak to an enlisted member a bit easily or more easily about
Sure, that makes sense.
career progression or work issues or things like that, similar situations. So we really work in tandem, but the ordination and educational requirements are there for the Chaplain Corps specifically because we fill that kind of unique niche.
Sure. No, I got it. Yeah, that makes sense. If you're going to talk to somebody about something that's potentially one of the biggest things you're dealing with in your life, you kind of want to have that comfort zone, right? And if that comfort zone is someone who you see more relatable, or maybe it's just, someone who's the same rank as you are, or whatever the case is, can make that an easier conversation. So I think that religious support team as a group makes a pretty awesome resource for all airmen. So, all right. I'm sorry.
I said they might hate mustaches and just kind of really.
I hope they don't.
that.
But if they do, teaser, there's not all just mustaches on the show today. Sergeant Graydon is holding it down for the mustacheless in March. So love that you did that, though. Little shout out for the mustache march thing. That's totally what it is. Yeah, if everybody remembers from last time, Philip's back. So yeah, that's a thing. All right. Now I'm completely off. It threw me way off on my next question.
Sure.
So what do you do locally to kind of make sure that people are aware of the services that you guys provide?
Yeah, so this installation's where I'm at is a little bit different because we're a tenant.
By the way?
So I'm at Pope Army Airfield, which is connected with Fort Liberty. So there's a large Army presence. So religious services on this base are run through the Army side of the house because they have the personnel for that. And in this role, I'm the solo chaplain for this kind of unique standalone group. So it's more just, connecting with that joint service and knowing what's available for our airmen provided by the Army, and letting them know about those opportunities. But also we get a fair amount of leeway and bandwidth in this position to run kind of squadron-focused warrior care events for families, for single airmen, that we get to kind of create and figure out on our own, me and Staff Sergeant Jones and Sergeant Calloway, my religious affairs airmen.
Awesome. Yeah, that definitely is a cool resource to have other joint service members there because you can kind of learn from each other's backgrounds and also the training pipelines and everything that it takes to get to where you're at, and also gives you even more potential challenges, which is really kind of helps keep you on your toes. So
Sure.
Tell me what's the most fulfilling part for you personally about being an Air Force chaplain? Like what really just makes you feel like that's where you're supposed to be?
Yeah. So it's been very rare in the 5 years I've been active duty that I've ever felt like I'm going to work. I wake up excited to do what I get to do every day. 'Cause it's so fulfilling being able to sit with people on sometimes the worst day of their lives and be that presence that, hopefully is calming and comforting. And yeah, just to be able to walk with people through those situations. 'Cause you experience the full spectrum of human existence, right? Like people have people problems, and whether it's having communication issues with my spouse, whether it's, hey, I'm new to my faith and I don't know what I'm doing here, all the way to, hey, domestic violence, suicidality. There's this wide range. But I've never left talking to somebody and been like, oh, that was a waste of my time. It's always, wow, I'm glad that they had a resource that they could trust and talk to.
How do you find yourself being able to recharge from that? Because I'm a bit of an empath, and you kind of take on other people's problems as your own, and you try to help work through that. And then when you combine that with, what it takes to be your own individual human at the end of the day, what do you personally do to recharge, to kind of fill that battery back up again to where you can go back to not work?
Yeah. So that was a learning curve coming into the Air Force. So when I started, my wife and I had a conversation of like, hey, you need to make sure that you are not siloing yourself. And also, it's my wife's birthday, so happy birthday, Meredith. I told her I'd give her a shout out.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. Bonus marriage points.
There you go. Yeah. Take care of the other half. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. So we'd had that conversation of, hey, you need to find somebody to talk to. And probably 9 to 10 months into my first duty station, there had been some situations on the base. We lost a couple airmen to suicide, and I was struggling with that. And she kind of noticed, and she was like, hey, you seem to be getting angry about things you didn't used to get angry about. Because I don't know if you can tell, I'm not really an angry guy most of the time. And that was kind of the wake up call of like, oh, if I'm not taking care of myself in this role, then I'm not going to be useful to airmen or anybody else. So that was kind of the reset of like, all right, well, I needed to be talking to somebody on my own. And then also just kind of the personal spiritual practices that I do. So making sure we're connected to faith community, my own personal devotions. And then also, I'm married to my best friend. So having her there to kind of check up on me is always good. And playing golf sometimes. You're talking.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Awesome. So let's see. What was the question? What kind of people, like what kind of individuals does the Chaplain Corps really look for? Like what kind of characteristics in somebody would make them a good candidate? I don't know if that's the right way to phrase the question, but I know there's certain things that, will suit a chaplain better.
Yeah. So, I mean, on the one side, you've got probably the requirement stuff, right? Like, okay, you need the education, you need the experience. And then I think on the other side, personality wise, and, this is James's opinion, so I know the recruiters in the chat might be able to answer a bit better.
Sure.
But I think kind of flexibility, being able to operate on a schedule where you don't know always what's going to happen throughout your day, being able to be a good team player and work with a team of various backgrounds. So as I said, I'm Presbyterian, I'm a Protestant Christian, but the Chaplain Corps is not monolithic in what it believes, right? So we've got chaplains representing a wide variety of faith groups, and the ability to work with people who believe something differently than you, but are still focused on that same purpose of caring for airmen is a huge factor in like, hey,
sure,
this might be you.
Yeah, I would love to jump into that here in a little bit too, and talking about what it's like working in such a diverse religious kind of pool of resources, right? So where all of the different belief systems kind of still work in tandem because we're all on the same team, right? And I'm probably going to find a way to slip that question in there, but we are at the part of the show where we go to the back and forth section where we answer all of your questions, and I can see them filling up in the chat. Remember to put a Q in front of your question if it is indeed a question. It helps us sort those out because there's a ton of them coming through. But to help us answer some more of those questions and to get to know our religious affairs airmen a little bit, introducing Tech Sergeant Gren. Welcome to the show, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Hopefully everyone else is doing well as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking time out of the day. Tell me, what is it like being an enlisted, so a tech sergeant, right, in the Air Force, but also being a religious affairs airman? And what's the difference between a religious affairs airman and like a chaplain?
So the difference between a religious affairs airman and a chaplain is, so chaplains, they have their requirements, right? They Masters of Divinity, ecclesiastical, if I'm saying that right, endorsement. So as an enlisted member, we don't necessarily need all of that. We do get training in crisis intervention counseling, things of that nature. But for the most part, it's, hey, some people come in as pipeline, right?
Okay.
And, there's an evaluation that takes place during that time. And hopefully everyone is mentally fit for this position.
Sure.
But you know, we have a tech school just like any other career field. I know sometimes people think it's a special duty. It's not. But yeah, hopefully I answered that well.
No, for sure you did. You said pipeline. For our listeners out there that aren't familiar with pipeline, that's somebody that's coming fresh out of tech school. Walk me through what tech school is like for
Basic.
religious affairs airmen. Yeah, how's that? What's that look like for you guys?
So for us, it is now at Keesler Air Force Base. You go through, if I'm not mistaken, a 6-week training, and we talk about different religions. You talk about what it's like to help set up for certain services.
Sure.
We talk about it's a brief overview, but you talk about appropriated funds, CTOF, and what CTOF is chapel tithes and offering.
Wide gambit.
Right. We, just like any enlisted, we are the backbone of the Chaplain Corps. So we're learning a lot of programs through tech school.
Sure. What is it like personally for you? Because I want to take this opportunity to jump in because Chaplain Harris mentioned right at the end of our chat what it's like to interact with other kind of faith bases, right? So I can see that being something that people would be curious about, but being in the military and knowing a bunch of different chaplains myself, there's never like conflict or tension between them, which is pretty awesome. But what's that like to be able to work with other faith-based beliefs and in the same career field? Like that's got to be kind of a cool thing to witness and also be part of. What's that like?
I think it's pretty cool because you get to see different aspects of people's faith. You get to see different, different thought processes, right?
Okay.
Of people. But I think it's really cool because we have to make sure that we keep the First Amendment, keep that in the forefront and respect everybody. And so it helps knowing that, hey, the First Amendment says we all have the freedom to exercise our religion. Learn from this diversity. Don't shy away from it.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, let's jump into the back and forth section. Let's throw some questions up on the screen, get them answered, and we're just going to take turns talking to both of our guests and see if we can hammer through this. I see we've got some up on the screen. Let's throw the first one up there and get started. All right. Hi, Chaplain. This is Senior Airman Victoria from Travis Air Force Base. I remember seeing chaplains at BMT. Are there chaplains at OTS and USAFA, so at the Air Force Academy? And this one is toward Chaplain Harris. Why don't you go and take this one, sir?
Yes. Yeah. I'm Senior Victoria. There's chaplains at both those places. I appreciate the softball to start. Yeah. So pretty much every installation worldwide, you're going to have access to a chaplain at. So OTS, USAFA, they've got chaplains assigned to those units.
What do the chaplains at basic training do? Like, what is their primary function? Obviously, aside from just being available, what is like a lot of what they do there?
Graydon, you want to, or you want me to?
Captain Harris, why don't you take this one?
Okay.
Because you're being the chaplain, what do y'all do at basic? Like, what's one of the biggest kind of workloads that you guys see there?
Yes, I'd say I have not been stationed there, but talking to some friends who have been, lots and lots of counseling throughout the week, just helping people kind of work through that stress that they're experiencing at basic training, talk through that as in an environment where it's like, all right, I'm not being, judged right now for buttoning my pockets, but
Sure.
Sit down and kind of have that human to human conversation.
Right. And I softball that one to you a little bit also because if you are out there and you are thinking about joining the Air Force, basic training can be probably one of the more stressful things that you'd experience at that point. So while we're sitting here talking to the chaplains, it's not just about the people that are looking to maybe be a chaplain someday, but these are familiar faces. These are some of the first people that you're going to go to when you need a break. You don't get a full time out or anything, but if you just need a time to just talk to somebody, make sure that you're on the right track and get yourself right, this is probably one of the first experiences you're going to have with what appears to be a very friendly, very receptive face. So keep those guys in mind if you do join and you find yourself on Lackland Air Force Base having a bit of a tough time. Go find a chaplain. They're there for you. So there's your second softball. Next one's from Blaine. Says, my question for anyone who's able to answer, and we're going to throw this one over to the tech sergeant. Has anyone done the chaplain candidate program? If you tried, I want to hear. If not, what's it like? And thank you for any and all information. Did you ever think about going the chaplain side?
I did think about joining the Chaplain Corps on the chaplain side. Honestly, it is still on the table. But having been in for almost 7 years within the career field, the chaplain candidate program, from my understanding, is a program where basically you're testing out whether, well, you're being tested and you're testing out whether or not chaplaincy is the best for you, right?
Gotcha.
So you get sent to a base, and you're going to be integrated a part of that team. They're going to give you all types of tasks to do, right? They're going to test you to see if you can preach. They're going to give you invocations, things of that nature, just to see if you are the right fit for the Air Force Chaplain Corps.
Right. Yeah, because it's definitely going to take a special kind of person to get kind of the message out. One, also be able to handle the crisis intervention stuff that you guys briefly touched on, and to be that resource. I can see that being, once you go operational and once you're expected to do your job, that's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of stuff that you have to carry with you when you hit the ground running, to be able to be that resource, because your very first day could be your toughest day in the office, which that's a big lift. It's a big ask, but it sounds like they're preparing you guys for it and also making sure that they're making the best selections as well. So, all right,
Yeah.
let's see if we can get another one. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. But then, yeah, so I came in through the chaplain candidate program for, I think that was Blaine's question. Great experience. Yeah, it really does, like Sergeant Graydon was saying, let you get a feel for, is this a good fit for me while you're still in divinity seminary? And you also can knock out, officer training school during that time. That's one of the first things you're going to do. But learn a bit more of the culture. And especially if you're thinking either, reserve chaplain or Air Force chaplain, once you get ordained and endorsed and get out of that program, you understand the Air Force culture a lot better because of it.
Sure.
So yeah, we recommend it.
Okay. Very cool. Solid answer from both of you guys. Next one from, I'm guessing Rupp. I totally love the Air Force Chaplain Corps. They deeply saved my life, and there's a huge reason why I'm strongly serving the Air Force to this day. Wow. If you got a testament, like, that's right there. Still in the Air Force, still serving, saved the life. Like, whew, that's powerful stuff. Talk to me about that responsibility, Sergeant Graydon. How do you balance that? How do you personally deal with that responsibility and that impact?
Honestly, you take it one day at a time, one moment at a time. You never know who you're going to impact, and so you always lead with your best foot forward, right? And as the video stated, lead in love and in truth, because that's what people want. People want authenticity. They want transparency, and to not be judged. And so I think you take it one day at a time, one moment at a time. And hopefully you leave a lasting impact.
Okay. Chaplain, how about you? How do you shoulder that? What would you tag on?
I think, yeah, what Sergeant Graydon was saying, just the impact can be huge and the burden can be huge, but, we don't shoulder it alone. And yeah, I mean, I don't think I can add anything to Sergeant Graydon. Best foot forward every day and doing the best.
Sure. I think so. It's kind of clicked just now. We're talking about how you guys maintain the energy to do what you have to do to maintain a solid foundation for that responsibility that you have to be that resource for the airmen, regardless of what they're going through, how serious it is. But you also are surrounded by the same, right? So that's a question. Anybody have a story where you've leaned on your own, right? Where you've gone to another chaplain or you've gone to another religious affairs airman and kind of used them as a resource also. Anybody, either one of you have an example of something like that? Because I mean, I know, what I do when I need some help or some advice, I got the professionals all around me. I can go lean on them.
Chaplain Harris, you go first.
There you go.
Okay, yeah. I think so. My current position, where it's just the solo religious support team, having two great staff sergeants to work with that, I can vent to appropriately, but also
Sure, of course.
just kind of handle these burdens together. And then huge opportunities for mentorship within the Air Force. So my former wing chaplain, Joel Cornegie, is a fantastic mentor, and I will call him up, and he's a chaplain and has confidentiality. So I can just toss all my stuff on him, and gives great feedback and great advice. So yeah, I've definitely leaned into the team that I've worked with currently and previously. Because a lot of good people in the Chaplain Corps.
Sure. Sergeant Harris or Sergeant Graydon, how about you?
So Chaplain Corps is very small, and some of us have been through a similar experiences, right? So when we start networking with one another, whether we go TDY or we're in a training or something like that, we really connect. And then when we connect and we're going through something, hey, we reach out. Hey, have you experienced this? What can you tell me that can help move me along in this, right?
Right.
So I think to answer that, to sum it up, it's leaning on each other, right? Especially if we're at different locations, just leaning on each other.
It's also nice when you're going through something, even if it's just like work stress or a heavy lift or, the office is a lot, just looking to your left and right and seeing people around you doing the same thing. That team mentality also can help too. So you may not even have to actively reach out, just seeing other people there at that same level can be a huge resource as well. Alexander says, can an airman claim to consume cannabis for religious sacramental reasons like Rastafari? That is a fantastic question. Chaplain, how about you take this one?
No, it is prohibited to use cannabis while in the military.
There you go.
Yeah.
So,
sorry.
I'll
longer for that one.
Yeah, no, that's a great question though, because I know a lot of religions can rely on substance use, right? So whether that's cannabis or the like, and a lot of times, like you think like other ones, I'm thinking I can't remember which. There's like peyote and stuff like that, right? So there's a lot of like mind altering substances that can help reach a different level of understanding and stuff like that, right? But in the Air Force, what are some exemptions? That's a great signal. Okay. What are some exemptions? That's the sign that I just got shown. Let's see. Religious-based exemptions that would allow things like, for example, beards. I know that's going to be one. There are certain things that religious exemptions can do. I know beards is one. Headdresses is another, right? Any I'm missing?
So I would say the proper terminology would be religious accommodation,
Okay.
not exemptions. So, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping
No,
here.
you're good.
So for the accommodations to take place, there's a whole process, right? And all the way up to the commander, they have to recollect with all the recommendations from a lot of team members on whether it is safe, whether it is within good conduct and was it decency and order, things like that. So if it doesn't affect the mission, and cannabis would affect the mission,
that's a good
then
point, yeah.
that is something that they're going to take into consideration, right?
Sure.
So for beards, there's a lot of medical reasons why people have beards. I do know the Norse pagan religion, that is something that's coming on strong, and there's a lot of people who are claiming that who have beards.
Sure.
It comes down to their sincerely held belief. And so if it is sincere and they've gone through the process, the commander has what he or she needs to approve. So
sure.
and I'll let Chaplain Harris chime in on that as oh, go ahead.
No, I was just basically going to recap, but Chaplain Harris, why don't you take that one if you got anything else to add?
Yeah, I know. So outside of beard and headwear, you'll also find religious accommodations for dietary practices
Okay.
to make people can access food during different holiday seasons that fits within their religious guidelines. And I do believe peyote use or peyote use for Native American religions, as well as longer hair for males for Native American religions, can all be pursued as religious accommodations per the current Air Force instructions.
Sure. So it sounds like basically if you truly do firmly believe that this is something that you need to do, they basically support that with some documentation. They put it up as a request. But at the end of the day, it sounds like the Air Force is accommodating, right, quite a few of these exceptions that allow people to practice and still serve, right, where otherwise it may be a situation that you couldn't do both. Well, I think it's kind of showing by this example that the Air Force really is trying to be inclusive, right, and also allow the participation in that First Amendment right. And that's really cool because we see it more and more every single day, which is awesome. Megan says, what continuing education is available for chaplains in the Air Force? I'm going to point this one back at Chaplain Harris because I feel like you got a good answer for this one. Continuing education for chaplains. What do you got?
So yeah, we just talked about this before the show started a little bit. So my next assignment, I'm doing clinical pastoral education. So the Air Force utilizes that program for captain chaplains to get 4 units with that experience. So at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, you can go there potentially and get clinical pastoral education and get those certifications. And then alongside of that is the Air Force encourages you to pursue higher education. So when you look at like leave or we call them TDYs, where you're traveling for your job, there's something called permissive TDYs, where it's not counted against your leave, but it's for an educational reason, perhaps. So I'm doing my doctorate of ministry and have been able to take permissive TDY to go in person to the university a couple times a year and work with my schedule to make sure I'm able to hit guidelines, et cetera, et cetera. So that one, the Air Force doesn't pay for the doctorate of ministry, but they're allowing you to pursue that and flexing your work schedule to make that a possibility.
Sure. That's really cool. How did you find out about that program? Is that something you just know about, or is that like a resource that's available?
So every year, the Chaplain Corps will put out a call for nominations and applications for CPE. And so fill out the application form, and you get your commander or your boss to write their blurb about you, and then kind of goes through the wickets. So it's 3 years while you're a captain that you're eligible. So you can apply up to 3 times for it.
Gotcha. And that goes for a lot of different career fields, not just chaplains, but there are people whose entire job it is to kind of look out for your education, look out for your career advancement, and they send opportunities all the time of, hey, check out this course, or check out this opportunity, or check out this potential duty assignment that you can go do that can fulfill additional roles and give you more scope and make you more comprehensive as an airman. So really cool that the chaplains also have the exact same thing, just like everybody else. Mike says, what is it like working with members of different faiths serving in the same Air Force? I'm going to pass this one back over to Sergeant Graydon. I know we kind of briefly touched on this, but what's that like?
It's a unique opportunity. You don't get to meet people who don't believe and think like you every day, right?
Sure.
And so when you have the opportunity to work with somebody, to get to come alongside them and get to know them, you start recognizing that, hey, what they have to offer is pretty cool. It's pretty unique. And I'm learning how to work with a Muslim faith member or a Wiccan member. We have a variety of faith backgrounds within the Chaplain Corps itself. And so, but even more so in the Air Force, right? So, I mean, we're out here, we're having conversations with people who are Muslim or who are from the Norse pagan background, right? So it's just an opportunity to learn. And I think ultimately it makes us better as an Air Force and a chaplain corps.
Solid answer. Chaplain Harris, how about you? What's it like working with different faith-based backgrounds as a chaplain? Like, how do you, like, give me an interaction type or what that feels like for you?
Yeah, I think again, Sergeant Gren just homering these answers. So then I got
Right.
to follow. I like to think it's the same working anywhere else where I expected to be treated with dignity and respect, and I'm going to treat the people I work with dignity and respect.
Right.
'Cause the world does not need everybody to think exactly like I do, and there's a wide variety of faiths. But part of that is this uniform signifies that we care about the First Amendment of freedom of religion, and the same way where I know that they would stand up for my freedom to practice my beliefs, I want to make sure that they've got all available resources so they get to practice their faith.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then the fundamental part of, yeah, exactly, right? So you guys are talking about each other's home runs, and then you're just smacking them back and forth from one ball field to the other. But I think it's really cool because as chaplains, your job is to support that and to be there for the airmen. And as religious affairs airmen, your job is to support that team and also support those airmen as well. But the cool thing about it is, while the First Amendment is a huge thing in you guys' sights, the Air Force is also as a whole doing the exact same thing, right? Our job is to protect those freedoms, right? So that's kind of cool that you guys are almost taking it to another level of service and protection of those rights and also making sure that it's acted upon inside the service. That's awesome. That's super awesome. Would a judge of the ecclesiastical court of the Catholic Church have any advantage in becoming a chaplain? And could he continue to be a judge being a chaplain if this person enters the Air National Guard? That's a very specific question. If you guys need me to throw that back up again, we can. But it sounds like a specific question about Catholic chaplains wanting to also be judge. Is that correct? Am I getting that one right?
Can you throw it up one more time? And
Yeah, let's throw it
read
up
that
one time. Would a judge of the ecclesiastical court of the Catholic Church have any advantage in becoming a chaplain? And could he continue to be a judge being a chaplain? I'm assuming that means legal. And if this person enters the Air National Guard. So ANG would put you state-based, right? So you'd be based wherever your state is. And then does the Chaplains Corps have any kind of differences between full-time, reserve, and ANG? Is there a difference between state service and federal service?
Once you're in it, the orders you're on, whether they're Title 10 or Title 32 for reserve or guard versus active duty, will affect some things, but the requirements to become a chaplain are the same across the board, kind of one team, one fight with that. So that question would probably be best answered by Chaplain James in the comments to get more specific, or referring that member to one of our Catholic chaplains who might have a bit more.
Sure. No, that's not very often that we don't have a solid answer based on our guests, but we will absolutely use the baseball metaphor and tap this one over to the comment section, because one of the cool things about this show is we not only have Air Force recruiting chatters that are in the comments answering some of you guys' questions. You guys see Ray and Pam in there. But we also have job-specific people that are in there answering questions as well. So we are going to hit this one over to, you said James?
Chaplain James, yep.
Chaplain James in the comments. If you could reach out and touch base with this person and make sure that we get them either pointed in the right direction or the right answer. So we've got answers coming from everywhere. Carmen says, hi, Pam. This is Master Sergeant Kathy, Religious Affairs Airman from the Reserve. Our highest needs are Roman, Catholic, and Jewish. Pam is one of our Air Force recruiting chatters. So her job is to basically help answer questions that are recruiting specific in the chat. So looks like the ones we need right now are Roman Catholic, if I read that correct. So Roman Catholic chaplains are in the highest demand at the moment. So I had one. Thank you for saving me with the comment. Randy says the Catholic judge question should be directed to the Archdiocese of the Military USA office. They are the endorsing agent for all Roman Catholic chaplains in all military service branches. Thank you, Randy. Appreciate that little insight there. Let's see. Does family get the travel benefits if I'm not with them? Well, it's not chaplain specific, but it sounds like a little bit more service specific. Families can travel space A, right?
I believe they fall in the category of the category 5 without the enlisted member.
Okay.
Or active duty member.
Sounds like you got some experience there. What did you do? Because Sergeant Graydon, you were not always religious affairs everybody, were you? Did you cross train over?
No, I did cross train over.
Where did you cross train from?
So I cross trained from vehicle operations, and it's now since called ground transportation within LRS. So
okay, I was about to say it wouldn't surprise me if you were going to say you were like personnel or PAX terminal or work somewhere where, because Class 5, if you knew that you could fly class for Space A. So basically, if you're not familiar with what Space A is, the Air Force obviously flies our aircraft, whether they're transportation aircraft for goods and equipment or for personnel. They fly all over the world, right? And a lot of times there is, I forget exactly where you can go, but there's a resource where you can go and check and see which flights are going from where to where, and you can get dramatically reduced cost for prices to fly, for example, from like Charleston, South Carolina to Germany, right? You can get on those and fly. I think the last time I did that Space A, it was like $18. It's pretty ridiculous. And they classify you by different series. So when they put it in there, you have effectively like active duty on leave as like a higher classification than family independence and stuff like that. So by being the 5th order of priority, you basically can fly if there's availability. And most of the time there really is, unless it's like a really heavily used rotator or an aircraft that moves back and forth from certain parts of the world, like a ton. There's normally availability, and there's always personnel flying back and forth. So yes, family does get the same benefits for travel as far as Space A when you are away. And then obviously, if you're flying with like a major airline and they offer a military discount, as long as they are your dependents and they have a military ID or a military dependent ID, a lot of times those will also honor discounts and stuff like that. So that's what I've got from personal experience. Have either of you guys ever flown Space A? It's a pretty wild experience.
Plenty of times.
Have you?
Plenty of times.
Tell me about it.
Honestly, so I think it was probably my 2nd year in. I was stationed at Aviano Air Force Base in Italy. And it was Christmas time. I came back, me and the family, we came back on the rotator, very, very cheap. And then actually I was trying to get back before my leave ran out. And the rotator, like you said, it's a pretty interesting process. It can be a wild game, right? So I couldn't get on at BWI, that's Baltimore, in Baltimore. So me and the family, we drove down to Pope, Army Air. I think it was Army Air Base at the time, or you have to correct me, Chaplain Harris, if I'm wrong. But we drove down there, and the mission took over the rotator.
Oh no! Priorities pop up. Yep, it happens. It's a pretty wild process. You can spend a lot of time waiting, and then sometimes you can hit it first try. So I don't want to dive too far down the rabbit hole of rotator stories, but Class A and flying, or Space A, not Class A, flying Space A is a pretty interesting experience, and I suggest that you try it at least once because it can get you all over the world for very little money. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes left. I kind of want to ask a very pointed question for both of you, and we'll start with Tech Sergeant Graydon. Give me an example of a powerful day, your best Air Force day, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in religious affairs. If it was, which I kind of fully expect it will be, talk to me about that and tell me about that story a little bit.
So my best and impactful day would be a day where chapel services are being used to the utmost ability,
Okay.
right? So I'm coming in. Let's say we have a retreat planned, or we have some type of family event planned, and the feedback that you receive from that lets you know that, hey, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I think for me, it's the impact that I have on other people's lives, right?
Sure.
Um, it's not sitting in front of a computer and looking at email. That is not my best impactful Air Force
Sure.
day, right? But it's coming in with a purpose, and we have something planned, and we're knocking it out of the park, and it's well received.
What's your favorite part about that? Like, what's your favorite part about being religious affairs airman?
Well, I'm gonna bring it back to the impact, because when you think about it, right, or for me anyway, the reason why I joined this career field was to help other people in their situations, in their times of need, or just to be there to help celebrate them, right, when something good is going on. And so
Sure.
for me, I bring it back to the impact that I'm having on people's lives through the things that we offer, and things that I can do.
Gotcha. Chaplain Harris, how about you? What's a story or one of the most rewarding things, best Air Force day for you?
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I brought it to the intent side earlier. So I think the other side of that is when I was at my last duty station, we had this ministry called Fuel, and it was for airmen by airmen. So it was like Thursday night, 10 o'clock p.m. in the chapel, and these airmen who lived primarily in the dorms, so like 18, 19,
Sure.
would come over and we do like pizza, and then one of them would share about their faith, and there'd be music and some games, um, and just being able to see that group kind of come together and grow,
Right.
and also continue on after I had left. Like it was not the James show, so
Sure.
it was cool seeing that all come together, and for them to find that community and realize like, oh yeah, we built something here that wouldn't have existed otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's all about balance too, right? You're talking about get serious and also can relax and let loose a little bit and kind of provide somewhere for everyone else's batteries to recharge as well. So great answers. Hey, I want to say thank you to both of you guys for taking time out of your busy schedules, joining us on the show, and helping answer some of these questions that people have about Chaplains Corps and about religious affairs airmen in the Air Force and what it's like to be kind of that cornerstone for communication and for the community, right? So you guys not only wear the uniform and serve your country, but also serve the men and women, regardless of what their beliefs are, and you're there for them night or day, 100%, absolute confidentiality, making sure that there's a resource for people to go to if they want to share a victory or share a low point, and help them get back up on their feet and keep them moving. So thank you so much for taking time and spending it with us and answering some of these questions. We really, really appreciate it. And make sure you tune in the future. We'll look for you in the comments. Everybody out there, you know the deal. Every month, it's the last Tuesday of the month, and we will be back here. Check out airforce.com. That's all I can say. Check out airforce.com. Check out some of the resources that are there. Look into the career fields, and come back in the comments and let us know what kind of shows you want to see also for the specific career fields and the specific topics that you guys want us to feature. We plan them quite a ways out, but we'd love to see your input there. Talk to a recruiter, see if you're interested in joining, whether you want to go officer or enlisted, but there's an officer and an enlisted recruiter locator inside airforce.com that you need to go check out. So with that being said, tune in next month. We have the 30th of April, and our topic on the 30th of April is rated officers. If you don't know what rated officers are, then you need to tune into that show because it talks about everything from combat system officers to battle managers, and also pilots. So if you want to be a pilot in the U.S. Air Force, you need to tune in next month, 30th of April on Tuesday, 2 o'clock Central Time. Until then, we'll see you later.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Back and Forth brought to you by Headquarters Air Force Recruiting Service. It is a privilege for us to bring you all the information and insider insight into the exciting world of the United States Air Force. Remember, this show is all about you. We want to make sure we're providing you information and answers you need to make an informed decision about your future. So make sure to join us every other Tuesday with your questions, your feedback, and any ideas you have for future episodes. We are all ears. Don't forget to subscribe to our social media channels for even more exciting content. And also visit airforce.com for all the latest information on serving as a Total Force Airman. And with that, until next time, aim high.